So now officially welcome from my part. My name is Sebastian Joy. I'm the founding president of ProVeg International and a serial social entrepreneur. And today we are going to talk about Kickstarting for Good. It's going to be partially also an interactive workshop. So you've come to the right place. So you'll also be able to share your own opinions and thoughts on a number of ideas. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here because especially in Asia, I've been here the first time in terms of, with vegan advocacy, I think in 2011 or 2012. So it's been a while, but it's, very amazing to see how much actually has happened, how many organizations have grown, how many more campaigns are there, how many more, businesses have grown. And to a large extent, that's obviously, I mean, there are, hundreds and thousands of people working on that, but often a very impactful way to actually bring about meaningful change is actually to really start new initiatives. And obviously there are lots of amazing people. I just put a few people that I know personally, but obviously there are, I know across Asia and around the world, there are many, many more very impactful people who are making very positive and fundamental changes for farmed animals and vegan advocacy. And basically what all these people have in common is that they could be described as social entrepreneurs. So what is a social entrepreneur? So that is basically a person who pursues novel application to solve global problems. So it's actually a pretty broad definition. Yeah, feel free in the back to come in. There are still some seats in the front here. So just, yeah, feel free to come to the front. We can then make any rearrangements later. Yeah. So basically, a social entrepreneur is someone who's willing to take on the risk and effort to create positive change in society through their initiatives. So obviously, in our case, that would be for farmed animals or for, to promote veganism for all of its benefits. And that can either be starting new nonprofits or that can also be starting new social businesses. But as we will see, that can also be about starting something that's, maybe much smaller, like an event series or a new community or something like that. Obviously, as impactful as it is to be an entrepreneur, what's even more impactful is to be a serial social entrepreneur. And that is basically if you do that repeatedly. Like, for example, if you think of Elon Musk, he just did not create only one company. He actually created 4, 5, 6, or however how many. And obviously, that's a good way to have even more impact. And also within our movement, a number of people, consider themselves to be serial social entrepreneurs. So basically, you do it over and over again. And as I said in the introduction, I consider myself to be a serial entrepreneur. But it's actually not really how I started off. It was more like by accident that I realized that's maybe what I should be doing. So, so how did this actually all get started? So first of all, I have to say that I have ADHD, so I have a very hard time paying attention for a longer period of time. So my mind is kind of like all over the place, which comes with several challenges. And when I became first vegan, obviously, as you all know, it's important to take vitamin B12, or to make sure you get enough vitamin B12. Who of you is all making sure they get enough vitamin B12? Everybody in here? I hope you do that. So obviously, there are many ways to get your vitamin B12. The most common cause, you just take a pill once a day, or maybe a bigger dose once a week. But with my ADHD, I would actually often forget to take it, and then I had so that actually turned out to be a problem. So at one point I was reading the labels on the vitamin B12 and on the pill, and they were actually saying you should leave it under your tongue, because it also gets absorbed with your through your gums. And I thought, well, that's really quite cumbersome. I mean, is there nothing else that I have in my mouth on a regular basis anyway? And then while I was brushing my teeth, I thought, hey, wait a minute. I always have a lot of toothpaste in my mouth twice a day. Why is there actually no vitamin B12 in the toothpaste? So then I asked a few people and they said, Sebastian, that's crazy. Why would anybody put vitamins in toothpaste? And if that even would work, I mean, there are thousands of companies. They could make a lot of money, so they would already have done this. So first I thought, yeah, they're probably right. If it would work, it would probably already exist. But I kept forgetting taking my vitamin B12. So eventually I looked into that, and we found some unpublished studies that actually showed that it could work. And then we wrote some very convincing emails to toothpaste companies saying this is the future. You have to improve your products. And lo and behold, actually, we found a company who actually did end up creating a vitamin B12 toothpaste. And then we raised some money to do some peer-reviewed studies actually showing their efficacy. And now that's being sold across Europe, has been sold millions of times. And I don't keep forgetting my B12 anymore, and hundreds of thousands of vegans as well, because it's just a much easier way to get your vitamin B12. So this basically got me thinking, because it didn't take a lot of effort from my end, like I needed to convince the companies, we did some studies. But for the last 10 years, I basically haven't done anything with that, but it's still being sold. It's a positive way, because, then when people say, oh, you're a vegan, you have to take pills, that's not healthy. And I said, well, I brush my teeth, and that's actually recommended. And so there are much easier ways to get your vitamin B12. Then another example, actually just a couple of years ago, I've been going to a lot of conferences. And on the one hand, I've been going to a lot of EA conferences. Has anybody ever been at an EAG conference? Are there a few people? I guess there are a few. And obviously, I've been going to a lot of animal rights conferences. And at some point, I actually realized, well, it's actually a bit of a shame, because a lot of the EA conferences, they don't have enough animal content. And a lot of the animal rights conference, they're often not impact, focused enough. They talk about all kinds of topics. So then we basically came up with the idea to create what's now called the AVA Summit, like the Animal and Vegan Advocacy Summit. So we started that in the US about 2 years ago, and it became quite successful, because there was really a need in the movement in the US, because there have been similar conferences like that before, but now they're actually expanding. They're going to have an AVA Summit in South Africa, not South Africa, in South America, and another one in Africa next year. So it actually has been quite successful in that regard. And again, I only I found the people who organized it, and I helped raise some initial funding, and made sure I called up Peter Singer and said, hey, don't you want to be our keynote speaker? And he said, yeah, I will come, which helped really get people mobilized, and then that was helped to make it quite successful. Another example is we at ProVeg, we have been going to the United Change Climate Conference for many, many years, like for example to the UK one, but they never had much food topic. And 30% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from food, but there have never been much, much topic around it. So we basically created like this Food for Climate Pavilion, which was the first of its kind after 28 years of climate summits. They never bothered to have a food pavilion. But then, so we created that, and again, it's been going since then. And last but not least, who of you knows Tobias Leonard and his book, How to Create a Vegan World? I think there are a few, yes. So it's one of the co-founders of ProVeg, and he actually came up with, when we were discussing the vegan movement, how we can support the vegan movement, he actually said, well, if you look at all the other movements, they have strong, powerful international brands to push the movement forward. It's not only like, lots of little individual groups. So for example, in human rights, there's Amnesty International, which is active in over 50 countries. Or when it comes to environmental protection, you have organizations like Greenpeace and WWF. But when it comes really to food system change and veganism, at least 10 years ago, there wasn't any organization. That was the reason why we decided to create ProVeg International, which is a network of at the moment 13 organizations across 4 continents pushing the idea forward. So basically, I realized, okay, starting youth, paying attention for one topic for several months, that's not my big focus. That's not my strength. I like actually to create new things and then do new, go on to other stuff. So over the years, I've been involved in helping kickstarting a number of ideas, like a conference called VegMed, which was then out of that was created the Physicians Association for Nutrition, which then now we launched the Dietary Guidelines initiative, which is there to change the dietary guidelines. And I think is anybody from Malaysia here? Because I think they actually had some changes in their dietary guidelines. We were honored enough to provide some support for that. Veggie World has been a plant-based trade show that has been expanding across Europe and actually even into China a number of times. New Food Conference, like a more B2B conference. We started an incubation program for-profit, where we've helped over 100 startups so far. Helped together with my wife and Tobias start a Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy, where they have done trainings. Has anybody ever been at a SIVA training with my wife and Tobias? Yes, you are here too. Yeah, We the Free supported them a bit. Vegucation, that's a training for plant-based chefs. Well, we actually also had at some point, we had a veggie speed dating in Berlin, but it was actually so successful that the person organizing it got married to one of the participants, and then she didn't feel motivated to organize any other one because she said, well, mission accomplished. So that is not existing anymore, but if anybody wants to pick up on that, we can do that again. Might be a good way if you're looking for a spouse to find somebody. We launched like an international alliance called 50 by 40, and obviously now we can't Kickstarting for good because we realized, I mean, I was told, Sebastian, you're supposed to run an organization with over 200 people. You cannot come up with new ideas every 2 weeks. You know, that's too much for the staff. And then we decided, well, why don't we actually create a little playground for Sebastian, and we call it Kickstarting for Good. And it's going to be an incubation program. And then whenever there are ideas that, you know, that people come up with, we can just look into that. So that's basically what we did with Kickstarting for Good. So now we have this incubation program, and it's a 10-week program, actually 14 weeks if you include the pre-program. This year it goes from early September to November. People, if they participate, they're supposed to spend at least 20 hours a week on, you know, helping kickstart something. So it's still something, if you have another job, you can still participate in the program, you know, because if you work a bit on the evenings, on the weekends, you can make that work. We also have 2 sessions in Berlin, so we cover the expenses for everybody to come to Berlin and then, you know, meet with everybody. Yeah, that's where we provide the stipend. We connect them with potential co-founders and obviously many other stakeholders, mentors. We have a big network of mentors and supporters, and we have a pitch day for seed funding at the end. During the program, we cover many topics that you actually need to start successful a nonprofit or a new program or initiative or a new toothpaste, if you wish to do so, whatever you want to do. So, you know, starting from theory of change, what's the vision and mission of the organization, how to do fundraising, how to choose the right interventions, how to pitch your ideas, how to develop a proper strategy, and all of that. So it's a very extensive program, but it really equips you with a lot of the skills and tools and networks that you need to succeed. So far we have done the program 2 times, and we have received over 750 applications. So we were very impressed by the response we've had. Over 370 ideas were submitted to us. So obviously, people come up with all kinds of, creative ideas, but then it's our job to really look, okay, can this really be something that's, like game changing? Like let's just use the example with the toothpaste. If for any medical purposes it would not have worked, then the whole idea would not really be feasible. Or if there was any legal regulation that prevents you from putting vitamins in toothpaste, then there would no reason to pursue such a project like that. So obviously a lot of it, unfortunately about 95% of ideas are not really good enough to be worth implementing. So it's really about finding those hidden gem in all these ideas. But that's what we are here to help. And obviously then we also touch base with funders and see, are they actually interested in supporting such an ideas? Because even if an idea is good, but nobody wants to provide funding, it's also going to be hard to get it off the ground. So last year we had our first cohort. It was our pilot cohort. So we still had lots of learnings, but we had 18 people come to Berlin for the first time. And then out of that, we basically had 5 initiatives that graduated last year. So there's Vegan Thesis. It's a platform to connect students with thesis topics. We have Open Pause. I think actually Sam, he's also here at the conference. We have Reporters for Animals International. There's the 2 founders actually also here, to my knowledge. Then we have the Freedom Food Alliance, which was actually founded by Robbie Lockie, the former founder of Plant-Based News, which I assume some of you have heard. And on the right hand, that's a German initiative that's focusing on engaging churches to provide more plant-based options. So that was the first cohort, and now we actually just had our second cohort come to Berlin a few weeks ago. So we actually had 25 participants come or participate, and we assume that probably around 15 of them actually will go on and graduate. So obviously, having worked with all these founders or aspiring founders, seasoned founders, we have basically identified that it often comes down to 3 success factors that are important. And it's the personality and the type of the founders, also like, how well they work together. Then, not surprisingly, funding, like is there some, can we raise money from foundations, from donors, or is there maybe some, business case to be made where you can, generate money yourself? And like, how good is the actual idea? In many cases, the idea still changes, over time, but at least, the initial idea needs to be good enough. So let's go through all these 3 success factors. So obviously, founders are arguably like the most important ones, and that's also, where you potentially come in. If you ever thought about starting your own initiative, program, whatever it is, the question comes: do you actually have, do you have the right personality and the right skill sets and ambition to be a founder? And there are many amazing reasons to, be a founder. So I very much recommend it to everybody who's considering it, to at least giving it a try. And there are a number of reasons. So first of all, it's really a good way to create massive impact for animals. So, if you think about, if you look at like, like Bruce Friedrich, who started the Good Food Institute, if he hadn't started the Good Food Institute, who knows what the world would look like? Or many other people who've started to create impactful organizations. It can be a really good way to fill niches in the movement. So, if there's, something that doesn't exist yet, but it could exist, that's obviously, also how you create impact. So that's really important, because sometimes, new things still don't exist. Like, think about, again, like the toothpaste, like, why did nobody else come up with it? Somebody had to do that. You can learn an awful lot. Like, most people actually say that they learn more if they launch a new profit or a company or whatever, that they learn more in the first 6 months they would learn in 2 years of an MBA program. So it's really an amazing learning opportunity. Even if you don't succeed, the learning, you will still have all that learning, and people still like to hire people who have tried something even if it hasn't been successful. And last but not least, you can basically be your own boss, because you don't have anybody that you need to report to. And I know, usually for the typical entrepreneur, that's actually also quite important, because they have maybe their own ways. They see a vision that nobody else will see, so they have to, if they have to convince a boss, can be often problematic. But obviously, there are also a few downsides to each of those. So with regards to the impact, most of initiatives actually fail, and then you might not create any impact at all. So that's just something to be aware of. But as Elon Musk says, if the stakes are high, even if you only have a 10% of succeeding, it might still be worth to try, because you never know if it succeeds. And so that's one part. Then yes, it's really good to fill an important niche, but it can also easy to become that you still end up doing some kind of competition, maybe with other groups who already do exist. So it's really important to identify that niche, that you don't end up creating more competition that's not necessary. Yes, there is a lot of learning involved, but it's also a lot of work. So if you say, well, I want to create something new and I have like 10 hours a week, it's probably not going to work. So you really, life circumstances need to be right, that you really can put in the amount and effort. And sometimes it can also be, that you end up working on a project for years and years and it's not really succeeding, but you might be too attached to let go. And that's also, I guess, where Kickstarting for Good comes in, because if we don't see something has really the potential to become very impactful, then maybe, we have a serious conversation with that person and say, well, maybe it's better to do something else and, work on a project that can really have the massive impact, so it doesn't feel like, it's an uphill battle all the way. And yes, with regards to being your own boss, yes, in some sense you are if you are the founder, but it also just means you have many smaller people and stakeholders that you have to please. You might have employees that have certain, expectations. You might have funders that have expectations. You have legal requirements. So it's not a walk in the park. It's still a lot of work. And, you still, need to, be good at managing people. So actually, what we with KFG, or with Kickstarting, if we're good to do, is we really want to make sure that there's a proper overlap between the people on the one hand who want to start a new initiative and those who should start your own initiative. Because, sometimes people might be interested in starting, but maybe for whatever reason, it might not really be their cup of tea. And sometimes there might be people, and sometimes there are people, some who want to start, but some who should. So, there could also be people who who could actually do it, but they might be too shy or they don't think they have what it takes. So we really want to make sure that we basically increase that overlap about people who want to do this. So what are some of the criteria that we ask people if they want to join the program and thinking of creating something? So we basically, at this stage, boiled it down to 10 criteria that we are looking for. So those on the one hand are past successes. So, do you have a history of starting something on your own? And have you shown some track record? Obviously, we don't expect you that you have, founded Apple and sold it for $1 billion. But, even if it's just like a little student project or some, small, like let's say a local meetup or a local veg fest, but something where you really took the initiative. I mean, that's at least like, that's already a good indicator. Obviously, if you're very young, we wouldn't expect that, but that's generally a good indicator. Then do you have lots of interpersonal skills? Are you hardworking? Hold on, actually I have this a bit more. So so past successes is, have you launched or led impacts, projects in the game? Interpersonal skills would be, are you good at communicating and developing relationships? I mean, most initiatives are very, you have to work with lots of other people and you have to, usually have to, build good relationships with them. Are you hardworking? Are you really, willing to go above and beyond at work? Because it takes a lot of effort and it really often comes down to you. If things, don't turn out as you expect them to, and they never do, then, you might have to do some extra work. Are you really impact focused? So I think, we're really looking for people who really want to do the most good for the animals. I mean, I guess most of you are here, are you? Also, like leadership. I mean, are you somebody who, likes to take charge? I mean, obviously there are many different leadership styles. So, you don't have to be, the, charismatic person who always loves public speaking. There are many successful entrepreneurs who are maybe a bit more in the background, but still you need to take responsibility. Also, life circumstances in general are important. Do you actually have, the circumstances in your life that would allow you to really do that? Like, let's say, for example, if you just found out, we're having a baby and it's going to, in 3 months, maybe it's not the best time to also start a startup because, you might be busy with other activities for some time. Or I don't know if you have to take care of your family. It might be better to then wait a year or two until the life circumstances has changed. Also, are you pragmatic? I know we have a lot of idealists in our movement, but to really be successful, you also have to be pragmatic. Sometimes, you might have to do, change your original approach. Integrity is very important. Like, are you an honest person? Do you have strong beliefs and values that you respect? Growth mindset, that's probably one of the most important ones. Like, do you actually always want to grow and learn? Because no matter how good your idea is, I mean, or let's put it this way. Mike Tyson once said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's also when you create, any new initiative. So you really have to approach it, okay, what can we learn, from the failures that we've had and really move forward? And last but not least, resourcefulness. Do you have already maybe some existing networks? Again, if you're young, we wouldn't really expect that. But, if you say, look, I'm really well connected with my community, or I have, I don't know, maybe worked in this area for many years in another nonprofit or for-profit. So, or, I know a lot of, people who do similar activities. That's definitely something helpful. So feel free to mentally look at those 10 criteria and maybe give yourself a score from 1 to 5. And I think if you score at least like a 30, I mean, don't be too modest with the scoring, then I think you're definitely an interesting, I think it's definitely interesting for you to pursue the idea further. Obviously, there are many ways of creating lots of impact, even if you're not like the primary founder of a new nonprofit or initiative or program or what it may be. Like, for example, even if you joined, let's say, Apple as one of their first 5 employees, you might not officially be the founder, but you still had like a massive impact and have created an impact on the world. Or if you look at like Gates, if you become like if you can make many millions or billions of dollars and then become a philanthropist, or maybe work with a philanthropist, that can also be very impactful for some people. I mean, if you donate $1 billion, that's probably better than creating a new nonprofit. Also, like if you can lead a team, so maybe become the COO or whatever, or also like here on the right, maybe doing more research about what's actually really impactful. That's also needed in our movement a lot, or taking on certain positions, helpful. So let's come to the second success factor, and that's the funding. That's probably the question we get the most. Like most people, like when they already have an idea and think, oh yeah, I have an idea, it's brilliant, I just need the necessary funding, and then it's going to be amazing. And we usually have to stop the people and say like, oh, we actually have 3 news, and we called it the good, the bad, and the ugly about funding. And so first, let's start with the good one. So the good one is there is actually a lot of funding out there these days. There's, even, if you look at the farm animal and vegan movement, it's probably globally speaking over $200 million that, philanthropists alone are putting into that movement. So there is funding out there. So that's actually the good part. But however, the bad part is that you really need to show that you are more cost effectiveness than others, because obviously, there are way more funding proposed. Like ProVeg, we also have a grants program, and we get 3 times as many requests or 5 times as many as we can actually handle, and that's the same for every funder. So, it is still quite a competitive market out there, and you really have to show that what you do is actually more impactful than what the money could have done otherwise. Which basically brings us to the last one. There's actually the risk of you causing more harm than good if you actually raise money for something that is then actually not being very impactful. If it could have gone to some other initiative, let's say they could, you raise $10,000 and you save, just as an example, you raise $10,000 and you help 10,000 animals. If somebody else could have saved 20,000 animals with the same amount of money, it's actually not necessarily a good thing that you have helped 10,000 animals, because the money could have done more good on the other side. So how do we actually prevent that from happening? And this is how we look at it. If we look at new initiatives, usually they start here. If you look at 2 dimensions, and the one is how much cost effectiveness you have and how much funding you have. So obviously in the beginning you don't really have much impact or cost effectiveness, and or much impact. So what most people actually like to do, they say, hey, we need to raise a lot of money, and once we have a lot of money, then we can create lots of impact for the animals. And that's what they would like to do. But a lot of the times, sometimes people, they raise money and then it ends up going here. Like, maybe the project fails because, you organize an event and then nobody shows up, or let's say you do some campaign, but then it doesn't work. So that can actually happen quite often. So what we actually like to see more is that people show some track record first, like that they can actually achieve something. And then once we have more of a proof of concept, then we we like to give them some seed funding, and then if it goes on, they can actually become even more successful, with more funding. So that's a bit more our approach with Kickstarting for Good. One way to basically look at this is, sometimes people ask the wrong questions, like, how can I create massive impact and be cost effective? How can I make sure to deserve funding? So that's the big question. And then, so in the first half of the program, I mean, if you think about it like a plane, we want people to see that they can accelerate on the what's it called, the strip? the tarmac, so that they can really pick up a lot of speed in terms of showing traction, and only then it makes sense to basically pull up the handles and lift up. So we're just basically getting the funding. So a lot of the program within Kickstarting for Good is to see if you can actually validate your idea. Just to give one example, 2 ideas that we explored the last time. One was Reporters for Animals International. It's like a support network for journalists for animals, and they organized an event in Berlin. And the very first year, even they just announced it a few weeks ago, they had 30 people actually come to Berlin to the event. So that was quite a powerful statement that they're really filling a need. But another idea we looked at was the Plant-Based Chef Association. We were trying to create a global association of plant-based chefs, and there are obviously thousands of vegan chefs out there. But it was actually hard to even get 30 chefs, plant-based chefs, to even sign an online petition. So because they did not get any traction, so we actually decided not to move forward with them, but rather support more the other group. And that's same with many ideas. So which obviously takes us to the last topic, how do you actually notice whether an idea is really good enough that it deserves funding? And that actually brings us to the idea assessment. So obviously, there are many factors that come into that assessment, but for the purpose of this workshop, we keep it down to 6 key questions that we're having. So first of all, it's how big is the problem that you're actually trying to solve? Because obviously, if it's something that only, let's say, impacts 5 animals, I don't know, closing a circus or whatever, or zoo, maybe that's not the biggest problems in terms of how many animals you can help. So is this really how big is the problem that you're trying to solve? Second is how neglected is that area? Are there already 10 other organizations exactly working on this topic? So then it's probably hard for you to really make a meaningful difference. Which brings us to the last topic, tractability. Can you really make a difference, and ideally even provide evidence how you can provide value that is helping animals in the end? And another idea is fundabilities. Are there funders interested in supporting the ideas? Obviously, it's even better if it's not the usual suspects, the typical farm animal funders, but are there maybe other ways of raising money from outside the typical ones? Anyway, the questions would be, and that's also something where with Kickstarting for Good we can help, because we are in regular contact with a number of funders, and all the ideas that we are moving through our stages, we check in on a regular basis if they, whether they like the idea, what kind of proof they would need to see in order to move forward with that idea. Fifth is obviously the team, very closely related to the funders again. Is it actually realistic to find people who can implement this idea? I mean, obviously, if you are already, if you're already the founder and you maybe have 2 or 3 other people with you, that's already quite helpful. But let's say you need, I don't know, you need to hire people. I mean, if it's sometimes there are these ideas that only work if you have the best, amazing social media strategist that usually charges $200,000, but you need them to volunteer. That's probably not a model that will work out, because you're probably not going to find that person. So, can you really find the appropriate people to pull this off? And last but not least, it's a very important success factor. What about the timing? Is actually now the right time to implement this idea? Because a lot of because otherwise the question comes up, well, why hasn't it been done before? If there's any specific changes, I mean, let's say Kyle, he is here with his AI idea, and obviously having an AI training community that did not make sense 10 years ago. But now with AI being more advanced, this actually might be a right time to actually do this. Or let's say one of the other ideas we're discussing is this plant-based food association for the industry. You obviously need enough companies to have a critical mass for them to actually join. So that's a big question. Also, with the AVA summit that we launched, if we had launched it a few years ago while there was still COVID happening, that would not have worked. Or even earlier, there were other conferences where people were going. So it was quite a sweet spot where there was this gap, and people really were desperate enough to come to that conference. So that's basically from my end here. And now we are coming to, in order to answer those 6 questions, we come to the group work. So for those who arrived a bit later, we are here to discuss 6 different ideas. So the ideas is going to be a vegan business network. So basically like a local chapters of an international vegan business network, like, in your own city or so. Then the second one is vegans engaging with vegans in corporations. So that's going to be a second idea. Another one is to maybe create national plant-based food associations. They're already, in Germany, in the United States, the United Kingdom, there are already plant-based food associations, but I know that there are definitely a lot of countries that don't have a national plant-based food association, so maybe that would be something of interest to do in your country. Then we have then AI learning community, so that's with Kyle. Kyle, can you just quickly stand up? Yes, so that's with Kyle. He's leading that effort. Then reaching out to top universities or general university outreach. So that's going to be on that side of the room. And then social media influencer training institute. And the way it's set up, so as you can see, on each side we have 6 rows. So basically the first 2 rows on this side is the vegan business network. Then the middle ones with Tim. Can you quickly stand up? Yeah. So that's Tim. So in the 2 middle rows will be about the vegans and corporations. And in the last 2 rows, we'll talk about plant-based food association. And then on the right-hand side, it's basically the same. So Kyle will take care of the first 2 rows. So I know some people are still looking for seats. So I think we'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to basically come together as groups. Probably it's best if the first rows, or out of the 2 rows, flip their chairs, so you can basically create a little community with 10 to 12 people, and then you can discuss the ideas. So there should be papers in the rows where the idea is described. So then you can obviously read through that description and then basically discuss those 5 questions or those 6 questions that you have. And then what we want you to do is you can discuss this for let's say 15 minutes. And then we want one person of the group to present up here and maybe quickly present the basic idea. And what is the biggest strength of this idea? And what do you think is the biggest weakness that you think why this might not work? So those are basically what we want you to discuss. So yes, I'll put back up the 6 topics. So I'll give you 1 minute to find a chair or turn the chairs around and come together in groups. You can also move a bit more forward now. Yes, thank you. Okay, everybody. So I suggest we come up with the first person. Oh yes, clapping. So it seems like the AI people want to go first. They seem so enthusiastic. So please send your first volunteer or your dedicated representative. Kyle, is that going to be you, or did you find some other victim? Okay, please. Okay. Let's all please be quiet, because you also can learn a lot from the others' ideas. So even if that is not your favorite idea, it's really important to learn how to think this way. Quiet, please.
Thank you very much. All right, so my name's Kyle, and my idea really was to build up an AI enablement community for advocates in the nonprofit space. And in a quick summary, I suppose there's 3 pillars. The first is an education component with trainings in terms of either cohorts or courses, as well as weekly office hours to just enable this continual education about AI, because it just continuously evolves at such a rapid space. So education to help build up a foundational knowledge of advocates of how they can use AI, what are the tools to use, what is prompting, et cetera, et cetera. The second component really is about implementation. So how can you take AI and implement it into your organization both ethically, but also to help solve specific repeatable problems. So I think there's really kind of two main use cases of AI. You've got this thought partner where you can just bounce ideas, get it to help solve specific tasks throughout the day. But then you've also got the capacity to put it into implementations, to put it into systems that you're already using and help solve specific pain points around repeatable tasks that you're doing. So the idea would be to try and help enable specific people in these organizations like MacGyver's to help build up from the inside out these custom solutions that can help both themselves and other members of the organization. And the third pillar is a community, because I think what could be so beneficial to the movement as a whole is for people to actually share what have they found that works well, what are the tools that they're using, what are the prompts that they're using, and also what's not working, like why are they finding that this hasn't helped. So it becomes an opportunity to ask questions, to share knowledge, and hopefully lift the whole sector as a whole. So in terms of the main strengths, we spoke about a few things, and the strengths was definitely around, I think, education. There seems to be a scarcity in terms of like knowledge about what to do, where to start, what's the best tools to use. Even just Googling about AI tools brings up, thousands and thousands of results. What is the best kind of applications for that? So that was definitely one of the strengths, as well as the use cases, like learning from other people, seeing specific concrete examples that can really be leveraged to be used within their organization. Sorry, I didn't really have a huge amount of time to fix my notes, but I think the problems that kind of came across, there were some interesting ones. The first was as an individual organization, to really leverage the power of AI, we need good data. And it's almost like before we start using AI, we need to really figure out what is the best way to collect data and store it before we can actually use it. So potentially, before we even, kind of explore this topic, we really need to go one step back and figure out the whole data collection part. The other part that really came up, I think, is much more of a concern around AI in general, in terms of the ethics of AI. There's obviously a huge concern around, is it copyright material? Is it plagiarism using this? Whose idea is it? Are we okay to use it? What are our stakeholders going to think about us using it? We also have the concerns about AI taking people's jobs. And is there really enough evidence showing the impacts of this? And is there enough people in the space using AI? Or is it just going to be so limited to only a few people doing it that it's really not going to gain traction?
Okay, thank you so much, Kyle. Very exciting. You've got a good group there. Thank you. Okay, next group. Who wants to go next? Yeah. Not all at once? Okay, top university outreach. Have you one person who would like to present? Yes, please come. Oh yeah, here's one. Okay, that was the, I think, Plant-Based Food Association. And yeah, and it's getting close to lunchtime, so let's really stick to the top level, just briefly explain the idea and then the main strength and the main weakness. Obviously, you're still welcome. I mean, we still have 3 days of conference, so you can obviously continue discussion.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nawasa is my name with my colleague, so we're working together. So I'm going to talk about, he's going to talk about the pros and then I'll talk about the cons.
Sure. Okay, so the idea that we're going to talk about is plant-based food associations. Okay, so the biggest pro, in my opinion, is that it's not just about forming an association. It's also about certification. As in, like, let's say I have a business. Okay, why is anybody going to trust my business? Like, there is no way to authenticate it. But let's say if I form an association where there is a certifying body, then people will believe, okay, this is something that can be relied upon. Okay, so let's say if I start a company out of nowhere and I'm selling oat milk, why are you gonna believe me, right? So this organization will be certified. Another thing is that it will not just be an association, it will be a marketplace. As in, we will get in touch with different suppliers, we'll get in touch with different consumers as well. So that will be like a really great concept. And it's a new thing. It's not like it's already been established. So I know that there will be some bottlenecks initially, but it will be extremely helpful to grow, okay? And again, it's easy to build it. There is no such thing as manufacturing costs or operating costs. It's relatively like simpler. I'm not saying that it's too easy. There will obviously be there will be a lot of marketing efforts involved, but it will be much easy. Okay. And also, please let me know if I'm speaking too fast. My Indian accent doesn't allow me to speak slowly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this will also help us get in touch with farmers, supermarkets, and other stakeholders involved. So this can be like an extremely, groundbreaking thing, and it's actually been implemented in India already. So yeah, let's hope that it grows and it scales up to like greater heights. So now my friend here will discuss the cons.
Thank you. So the cons, it's hard to regulate because in some countries there is no standards body. In some countries there's something like V-label, but in most countries we do not have something like that. And there is need for statistical data. So you need to do research to find out do we have any plant-based associations, where are they, in which supermarkets can you find plant-based options. So your first challenge to find this data. In some countries, it's not a government priority, and it's worse in countries where there are no plant-based guidelines. And then in some countries, pesticides are not regulated, and very many people have tried to stay away from plant-based options. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very good. Okay. Okay, now who wants to go next? Okay, please. They have. I think it was the engaging vegans in corporations.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sharan. I'm from San Jose, California, and I'm in the Vegans in Corporations group. So the specific idea that we came up with is how do we foster, or I guess the question we were trying to tackle was, how do we foster and encourage veganism within our corporations? And the idea that we came up with specifically is to conduct seminars that promote veganism or promote plant-based living within our corporations, right? So I know my corporation in particular, Bank of America, we have a lot of initiatives that promote employee well-being, and we can connect with some of those initiatives and have speakers like nutritionists, plant-based nutritionists that present to a large group of employees. And along with those presentations, we can have food tastings, because I feel like a lot of the fear that people have about going vegan or going plant-based is that they believe that they're just going to be eating grass all day. And having those food tastings is a way to assure them that that's not the case, that plant-based food can actually taste quite good. And connecting them with nutritionists and having these seminars will allow them to know that it's not only going to taste good, it's actually going to be good for them. And I think having that tasting is a way in which that it kind of comes to the strength, right? Is a way in which they can connect with the food that they feel like they can eat moving forward in the future. One of the weaknesses about having these seminars is a fear that I personally have is that it's not very scalable. So sure, you can present to 20, 30 employees at a time, but how are you going to impact, like, how are you going to present this information to hundreds or thousands of people within the organization, right? Because the seminar, it's something that's like in person, and you can only have a limited number of people that absorb this information. One workaround is doing it virtually, and we have a lot of virtual presentations within my company about, employee well-being, and we can have these seminars virtually, but that would take away from the tasting aspect. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of forks in the road, but I think this is a start. And yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much. Very good. Okay, next group. We have the Vegan Business Network.
Yeah. Okay, so our team is composed of people from the Philippines, Nepal, Uganda, and Armenia. Okay. So I think everyone here knows that there's vegan businesses who have existed before but is now closed. Right, okay, so that's the, we have the creation of a vegan business network. So it's for networking, sharing of ideas, creating strategies, and awareness raising for more customers. So our vegan businesses will be sustainable for the long run. This can help existing businesses and emerging ones, especially those who have not yet created their own businesses, support one another for recipe sharing, costing, and other concerns. So the strength is, this is a very important network that we need to create right now, because as I've already said, there are vegan businesses who have already closed or established ones who are in the brink of bankruptcy. So we need to help each other, to support each other. And I know I said before that the weakness is the creation of a team, but I think the weakness is for the funding, and especially if vegan businesses are willing to pay the fee. So one of the solutions said is if someone can help with the fee, so the vegan business can pay like $10, and then other one can pay like $10 for them. And also to look for at government agencies who can support the creation of this business, the Vegan Business Network. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, two more groups. The content creators. They should not be shy to be on stage, I assume. So, who is social media savvy and likes to get recorded? Thank you so much. Yes, no worries.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Heidi, and I'm from the Philippines. Our topic is on the Social Media Training Institute, and I love this topic because when this was discussed in the last year's workshop, I think in Malaysia, this was also one of the topics that we've also developed. And this is, in fact, a continuation, and I really thank you so much for bringing this up. So our theme, our basic idea is basically social media or expo or conference. And the theme is igniting the social media train, building the new influencers. Our considerations are the following: how to tap the influencers to join and be the voice for the movement, and what are the right messages to deliver, what are the key messages, animal welfare, of course, animal protection, veganism, health and wellness, legal considerations as well was also tapped as a main consideration, social media techniques and platforms. Who are the social media marketing experts out there that we can tap? Students were also part of the considerations that were raised. So what is our main strength? Social media as a massive tool for promotion and communication. I think most of us or all of us agree that social media is really a very powerful tool for promotion and communication. What are our main weaknesses? Finding the influencers. Why? Costs. Cost is one of the main concern. And of course, the reason why are the influencers would agree to be tapped? Are they doing this for the movement? Or they're doing this because they want our money? All right? So values alignment also is one of the weaknesses. Are the influencers living the advocacy that they're trying to raise and promote? So the question of credibility and integrity. Cultural and religious differences was also raised. How to align an ingrained cultural and religious difference. The challenges of personal beliefs into one community message that is animal protection and, of course, animal rights. So the question is, however, at the end of the day, is this something doable, team? Is this something doable? Yeah, so yep, so this is our topic, social media training.
Thank you so much. Okay, last but not least, we have the universities. Okay, somebody from PAUSE is coming here. Nice.
Hi everyone, my name is Phoenix from PAUSE and we're part of the...
Hi, I'm Jagriti Kaushik from India and I'm part of FIAPO, Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organizations.
So we're going to be addressing the concerns in the lack of movement, or basically lesser movement for veganism and farm animal welfare in universities. So we're trying to find out a way how to reach out to university students and let them be part of the animal welfare movement.
So you already know that university, the students who are, the youth of any country, who are going to be the leaders, the next leaders. So they are very important, and if they are not aware, that can be a huge problem for the future. So if we are going to increase the awareness thing and outreach programs in the universities, colleges, that can actually lead to change the future and can, increase veganism choices and everything in the future. Yes.
So we've come up with the idea to start them off with a one-day no-meat challenge in their university. The project would be using the trends, because we know already that Gen Zs or students are very much into trends. So we're going to be utilizing trends and different projects or challenges for the students to be aware of the no-meat challenges or vegan challenges in their university.
So you all might be a student or ex-student of any college. So you all have seen a popular student in the college, right? Might be there are people here who were popular in their college. So if a popular student is going to promote veganism in the college, like an influencer or like a small influencer of the college or the university, of course the other students will be going to follow him or her. So this is also one thing. If he or she is going to promote, say example, Vegan Wednesday or Meatless Monday or something like that, a campaign, so other students are going to follow him or her, and it can actually lead to a great change in the university. Example, a small group, 6 to 7 students who are vegan in the university can lead to creating a bigger group or a community as a campus ambassador program or something like that, and they can lead to the university to add or replace vegan options for their cafeterias or eating places.
So this project, one of the strengths of this project is that others have already done this. So we can base it off of different projects before that has been done before, and then improve it to tailor fit it to the students and the universities. Another strength is that it gives awareness for the students about the advocacy. And then the weakness.
The weakness can be that the students are not financially, independent. That can be the biggest weakness for this particular thing, because they do have a choice, but they don't have the financial strength to choose what they actually have the choice. But the positive part of this is, if they know this is right and this is wrong, in the future when they'll be going out and they will be having a job and they'll be earning and they are sitting in a cafe or a restaurant and they are having a choice, they'll definitely choose a plant-based option rather than a non-vegan product. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Such a big round of applause. Yeah, so that was the last group, and I know it's already lunchtime, so we're basically coming to an end. But thank you so much for your active participation. Obviously, this is just the very first session of an amazing 3-day conference. So feel free to continue the discussion that you've had in the groups. Also feel free to reach out to me. I'm Sebastian Joy, so you can also find me on the Hoover app, or I'll be around for the next few days. And yeah, very much for all that. I think so much you're all to help farmed animals and create a more vegan world. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.